When BC Book World's Alan Twigg hits 90 and a soccer ball rolls by, he will still have the urge to kick and chase it. Twigg is living proof there is an animal desire deeply embedded in himself, in small children, and in pro athletes to kick and chase a ball. Even though Twigg grew up soccer poor in Canada and didn't play in a World Cup, soccer will not release him or his team of ordinary BC guys in their 50s and beyond who still play soccer. It is my pleasure to welcome Alan Twigg and his soccer story called Full Time to Studio 4 to tell us more.
I think it's good to liken me to a small child. That seems appropriate much of the time when you're playing sports.
Doesn't it?
Oh, what the heck is going on with this thing? Why we get imbued with sports in our culture from the very beginning, and we take it as a given. And so this book I've written celebrates sport, but it also examines or investigates some of the darker elements of what the heck are we doing out there.
Exactly, and the culture and all of that. And as you say, we're more likely in the world to give up religion before we give up sport.
Well, I think there's a little, I always find it really boring, by the way, when writers have to read from their books, but there's one sentence in here that you just mentioned, and actually seems that it isn't just...
Get the glasses.
No, you get the glasses. Sex is sacred, taxes are here to stay, scientists aren't making much progress getting rid of death, but in order to elevate humans out of our primordial soup, I boldly predict religion will be jettisoned before we are willing to renounce sport. And so why is sport so fundamental?
Why is it, Mr. Twigg, Mr. Know Everything?
Well, you have the daughters who avidly pursue sports, and I know you have you just interviewed.
I have an ex-husband.
We saw the clip of you interviewing Bobby Ackles, and you actually know what it is you're talking about when you talk about the BC Lions. So
I was raised on football.
Exactly. So why instead of having me answer that question, which I try to do in this book, you know, why isn't everybody asking that question? You know, when you send your kids off to play and your daughters excel and you think, isn't that wonderful, they're doing well at sports, this is good for them, but very seldom do people within the world of sports question the value of sport, because people like George Orwell wrote about sport and said, you know, it's high, when you're teaching people to compete, it can be extremely divisive, and when your rationale is to beat the other guy, you know, there's a philosopher quoted in this book who says we're all nostalgic for blood and violence. And so there's a lot of that stuff going on, but you don't ever hear people talk about it.
Shakespeare wrote about soccer,
He did.
football. So playing soccer passionately is either hugely pathetic, you say, or frighteningly noble.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. It does. It sounds pretty good, because I had a game last night. It was pretty ugly. It was ugly. So sometimes sports takes you into places that really are not ennobling at all. However, then there is the glory of the camaraderie, and I have a chapter in the book about the importance of the referee. The penultimate chapter is in praise of the referee. Sports does teach us how to behave better and to guard our instincts and things. So, but there's a whole spectrum of behavior in sports that's what's so fascinating about the drama of sports, because you can get Zidane headbutting somebody disastrously at the end of the World Cup. It's horrible. So it isn't always the glory of Paul Henderson scoring to beat the Russians in 1972. Just as often it's Todd Bertuzzi.
Exactly, but Zidane forgot he was a team player, number one, and he forgot other things. A horrible moment.
Okay, a lot of
call
people
it football or soccer. A horrible moment in world soccer.
At the last World Cup, Zidane, one of the best players in the world, headbutted an Italian defender, and he is one of the greatest players in the world, because a lot of people won't know who Zidane is.
Right.
And what was the Italian defender knew Zidane's temperament, and because Zidane had played in the Italian professional leagues, and so they knew that Zidane could crack, and that he grew up on the streets, and that there were certain things you could say to him that would make him take his personal pride ahead of being on a team. And the Italian defender knew exactly what he was doing when he was goading Zidane.
Well, life is a game of snakes and ladders, as you point out here, and Zidane slid down the snake.
He did. He absolutely did, and it was a tragic event for millions. Television, the largest sporting event ever in world history, and the climax of that. Who cares later on who won? Well, all that people are going to remember is this fall from grace of at at the point at which he was going to win, you know, be the hero of the thing, he really had a gross example for all the children around the world how you're supposed to behave. And then he had the gall to accept the Player of the Tournament award, which was actually voted on by the journalists. Halfway through that game, that's when the voting ended for the voting, and this incident occurred in the second half of that game. He would have never received this award for being the top player in the World Cup if everybody had seen him do what he did. So it really was a terrific tragedy.
Yes.
And so sport is just full of tragedies as much as it's full of glory.
Well, of course, his comrades came second, and that was clear, and he reduced himself to the level of, was it Materazzi or one of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so you, at your age, sir, still playing the game competitively. Why?
Because amateurs can play as passionately as professionals, and that the idea that someone in their 50s is playing high-quality soccer, people wouldn't believe that. But in fact, so much of sports is in the brain that if you what is lost is the speed element. So when we play against 30-year-olds, and when we went to Spain, the tragedy of our story is they wouldn't give us guys of our age to play against. You can't compete on the speed level, but you can play on the passion level and in the mind level, and some of the skills are still there.
Right. Okay, but take me through the Alan Twigg soccer story. Grew up soccer poor because you grew up in North America. And I don't know why North America is soccer poor, but we certainly were then. We're getting better.
When I grew up in West Van, I didn't know there was a World Cup.
Yeah, but
so,
you knew there was a
because now
Grey
we
Cup.
have, now what's changed is we have, oh yeah, there's a picture. We have a television which now educates everybody to see the highest quality of soccer/football. It's coming on the screens, and that's why the culture of soccer in Canada is changing very quickly. But when I was growing up, we didn't see Manchester United on television every weekend. So we really were on this. We were soccer poor. That's what that means.
Well, and most of certainly girls weren't playing soccer in Canada then. I don't think. Well, few were, but it wasn't like the hot.
Yeah, and that's one of the fabulous
start
revolutions.
Sport.
Female soccer is brilliant. I love watching the Canadian women's team. 40% of the registered soccer players in British Columbia now are female. It's fabulous.
Yeah, but back to you. Your sports heroes were probably Bobby Orr and Hank Aaron, I'm guessing.
I love it when actually the interviewer actually shows that she's read a book, but she does it in such a subtle way that even the audience doesn't know. But then the author knows this person actually did some research. Yes, because the number I chose to wear when we were in Spain playing against these ex-professionals was number 4, which was only because, not because I have a soccer hero who wore number 4, but Bobby Orr wore number 4, and Hank Aaron wore number 44.
Sure.
So there you go.
Bobby Orr, number 4.
Yeah.
Now, back to you. So here you are, young lad, playing soccer. Did you think about becoming a pro soccer player?
I had a coach who wanted to send me to Germany because I was relatively, had some potential. But that idea was so foreign to the idea that you would actually try and become a professional athlete. I mean, that was like, you know, you're supposed to grow up and be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. You wouldn't, it would be like trying to be an actor, you know.
Okay, so you went to Europe and took your guitar instead of your soccer ball.
Okay, that would be true.
And then did you give the game up for a while?
When I got married and had a family, you take this hiatus. And after several decades of realizing I was missing something, I got back into the game, and we become more serious and enjoying our football more in our mature years, because now when guys are playing in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and Vancouver is quite unusual, or British Columbia is we're such a fit culture that the level of play that we have here doesn't exist in other places. But what's interesting is that when you play sports at a so-called senior level, your understanding of the game is so greatly enhanced, and you understand what the heck is going on. When you're a kid, really, you don't know.
You're free.
But the subtleties of team management and the manners of being on a team matter so much more when you're older, because you understand really what's happening. And so sports is actually enhanced because of the maturity that you can bring to it.
Older and slower, but older and smarter.
But not older and less passionate.
That's true. And